This isn't just a cult. This is a cabal. This is an assemblage. This is hurly-burly. This is disquiet. This is poetry. This is fiction. This is reality. This is bedlam. This is cynicism. This is 28 separate podcast subscriptions. 28. No, that is not the total number of podcasts that I subscribe to. 28 is the number of podcasts that I listen to on a regular basis that are devoted to news and or politics. There are another 69 music, art, fiction, interview, history, and whatever else podcasts that I routinely download. What do 28 news podcasts get me? Well, a lot of information. I'm thinking too much information. But the thing is, I really want to be an informed citizen. I want to contribute. I want the world to be a better place. I want my actions in this life to have a net positive effect on the state of the world. Ignorance will not assist me in this endeavor. It seems logical that I should battle ignorance with knowledge. So I read, and I listen to podcasts. I learn. Isn't that our duty? Isn't that part of the social contract? Sure. Ignorance is probably easier. I mean, I know a lot of people. So I know many people who are not paying any attention to anything remotely tangential to news and knowledge, and they seem pretty happy. They wake up 5 minutes before they need to go to work. They drive alone in their minivan to a job in an office complex where they do tasks they do not care about year after year after year. They go out for fast food at lunch. They leave the office at 4:58 and drive back to a home where they pick up their Amazon packages before they enter the house. They kick off their shoes and deposit them on the pile that they step over to get to the kitchen. They eat dinner out of a styrofoam container while sitting on the couch watching The Voice and simultaneously playing a game on their phone. They do this for the next 4 to 5 hours and then they go to sleep. Every 2 or 3 days, they shower. What I'm saying here, this is not judgmental. This is not a hypothetical situation. This is an actual description of someone I know, someone I like, someone I care about, someone I really appreciate in my life. She's a really sweet person. She is very generous. She has a great sense of humor. She does not give a shit at all about the state of the world outside of herself and her family, and she is super happy. And she drives me fucking crazy. Why? Because I have 28 news podcasts supplying me with all kinds of death, war, disease, corruption, and straight up fuckery by fucking dumbass, selfish, egocentric fuckers. I'm trying to take that news and information and use it, make it a tool so I can contribute as an informed citizen. I'll do my part to make this fucked up world better. If we all just do our part, if we contribute, we can make improvements. We can turn this around. I know it's not easy. I know that it requires effort and maybe some discomfort, but it's worth it. Plus, it's our duty. It's the social contract. Right? But no, not everyone is on board. Actually, from where I'm standing, very few people are on board. Don't get me wrong. I know that I'm not perfect. I am still and will always be ignorant and misguided about something or many things, but I'm trying. I mean, no one gets it right, but we're all supposed to try. Is it too much to ask? Think about it. What if you woke up every morning and said, my actions today will yield a net positive effect at the end of the day? You're still allowed to make mistakes. Maybe you forget to bring your tote to the market and you really need to use a plastic bag because you are getting 8 potatoes, 3 carrots, 2 onions, an eggplant, and some scallions. It's okay. Don't beat yourself up. Use the plastic bag. But while you were there, why not be nice to the clerk? Maybe pick up some trash you see on the way home. Maybe reuse that bag a few times before you move it along with the best practice intentions. Maybe. Why not? But what seems to happen is that we think that our little individual actions have no effect on the situation. Then we end up with 7 billion people thinking their individual actions do not amount to much. But I'm trying. I'm over here, and at least I'm trying. Most of the time, I fuck up, but I'm trying. The cynicism, well, that comes from witnessing so much idleness, so much abstention. Your lack of effort is really fucking up my action. It makes one bitter. I'm telling you, it makes one bitter. I know they are not actually trying to thwart me, personally. They're really not trying to foil anyone. They are just not participating in the conversation. For us upholders, people like me, it does feel a bit contemptuous. You see, I'm running around, gathering the information, and then exhaustingly exchanging old behavior for new, better, best practice, gonna save the world and create peace and harmony for everyone behavior, while you sit on your ass laughing at fart jokes and critiquing the participants of whatever is the latest reality-based TV program that requires your insightful and definitive judgment. Is there a show called Judgment? There should be. We really love tearing others down in order to build ourselves up. It's a distraction from the actual action that we probably should be taking in our own lives. I think I am probably doing that right now. It's just fucking maddening, and it fosters pessimism. Because there's a lot of shit that needs your attention, and I don't think that the judgment is one of them. You've got climate crisis, that's up there. You should be paying attention to that. That's a big one. Increasingly destructive hurricanes and typhoons, increased temperatures resulting in more intense heat waves, droughts, and wildfires. Meanwhile, in other areas, there is and will be increased precipitation, melting sea ice, creating an ice-free Arctic Ocean by 2050, and a corresponding sea level rise of 1 to 4 feet by 2100. You got increased ocean acidity resulting from increased carbon dioxide in the atmosphere being dissolved in the ocean, which upsets the marine food chain, and you got loss of habitat for both flora and fauna resulting in the loss of species. That's called extinction. It's final. Oh, and we're most likely past the point of no return. So this shit is going to continue for hundreds of years, millennia, a really fucking long time, no matter what we do, even though we have known about this for decades and we just ignored the problem. Maybe we can minimize it. Maybe. Although, we would actually, and this is key, need to start doing something about it. On the subject of extinction, and maybe something worth your attention, or our attention. How about genocide? The deliberate and systematic destruction of an ethnic, racial, religious, or national group. That's a thing. That's a big thing. Add that to things more important than the judgment. So many throughout history, and it's still happening. This hate is taking a great deal of time, energy, and resources. Let's just take a look at the last 100 years. And I wish I could go into more detail on these attacks. They deserve it. I mean, they warrant more gravity on an individual basis than this bullet point list will provide, but there are just too damn many vicious assaults on groups of people, not because of some sort of defensive measure, a real defensive measure, one based on an actual offense, but one's based solely on fear. Fear of the other religion, the other ethnic group, the other race, or, if I want to be more exact, fear and hate maybe are not the actual root of the problem. Maybe the root is power. Fear and hate are just the tools used by people who want to get power and keep it. Straight up fuckery by fucking dumbass, selfish, egocentric fuckers. So, let's begin. The last 100 years of genocide. You got the Syrian genocide, the Greek genocide, the Armenian genocide, the Dersim Kurdish massacre, the Simile massacre, the White Terror, massacre of the Don Cossacks, the Soviet famine, Stalin hates everybody, the Nanking massacre, the Parsley massacre, the Holocaust, Soviet Slav massacre, Tibetan Buddhist genocide, the Harkis massacre, Australian Aboriginal genocide, Pol Pot hates everybody, Guatemalan Maya massacre, Bangladesh liberation genocide, Bangladesh retribution genocide, Burundi 1972, the Tutsis killed the Hutus, Burundi 1993, the Hutus killed the Tutsis, North Korea starvation campaigns, Equatorial Guinea, the Auschwitz of Africa, the Paupawan massacre, East Timorese extermination, the dirty war of Argentina. Oh my God, the list continues. Why list them? Because we have a tendency to forget and think that it won't happen. It's in the past. But it just keeps happening everywhere. You might not be the victim or the persecutor today, but you could be one or the other very soon. So let's continue. Ethiopian Red Terror. Saddam Hussein hates the Kurds, massacre of Amazon tribes, pygmy hunting, Chechen wars, Bosnian Muslim massacre, anti-Tamil pogroms, Darfur, the Rohingya genocide in Myanmar, and of course the Uyghurs in China. Who conducts these atrocities? Usually, it seems, it is the result of leaders who use fear as their primary means of obtaining and retaining power. So, it's a little bit scary that we seem to be having a rise of right-wing populism bordering on fascism. The National Rally in France, the League in Italy, the Party for Freedom and the Forum for Democracy in the Netherlands, Bolsonaro in Brazil, Modi in India, Trump in the United States, Museveni in Uganda, Magufuli in Tanzania, Netanyahu in Israel, and Abe in Japan. Austria, South Korea, Belgium, Cyprus, Australia, Denmark, Finland, Hungary, Poland, Russia, Spain, and the United Kingdom. They are all seriously messing around with nationalism. So, you got a lot of countries with the rhetoric of anti-elitist, anti-establishment, anti-immigrant, anti-homosexual, anti-any religion that is not my religion. That, historically, is not a good recipe. But it does establish fear. It does create an other. It does supply fucking dumbass, selfish, egocentric fuckers with a means of straight up fuckery. Let's see, what else is there? What else might be more important than the judgment? Well, war. There's always war, right? Currently, when we are talking about major conflicts, the ones that would top the list are probably the ongoing civil wars in Afghanistan, Syria, and Yemen. You might even count the Mexican drug war, which has over 100,000 fatalities since 2006. The fighting continues in Somalia, Nigeria, Iraq, South Sudan, Mali, Libya, Kashmir, Myanmar, Gaza, the Philippines, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and many other places. Oh, and there is also conflict wherever the Kurds seem to be, whether it's with the Turks or with Iran. And Ukraine and Russia continue to battle in Donbass. All of that sounds bad. And it is. It's bad. Looking at it optimistically through the actual data, war, surprisingly, is on the decline. At this point in history, on the whole, Humans are safer and more prosperous than they ever have been. Across the board, there is less violence in the world. It doesn't seem like it because you wouldn't know that from subscribing to 28 news podcasts. And there are far fewer armed conflicts with far fewer casualties. The thing is that everything is much more global these days, especially economies. Everything is interrelated, and it is ill-advised and probably impossible to be completely isolated from the rest of the world. This interdependency decreases the chances of war between larger states because the financial repercussions are too great. But what we seem to end up with is just never-ending wars that appear to be driven by business needs. Things might be safer on the whole, but there is still plenty of fear. And when people feel safe, they do not want to give that safety up. They tend to look the other way as long as they can watch the judgment and feel safe doing so. And fear sells products. So we all need to be on high alert. There is terror around every corner. Maybe just give up a few privacy concerns every once in a while for your own protection. Maybe just stay in your own house where we can keep an eye on you. Everything you need will be delivered to your door. But on the subject of terrorism, the Global Terrorism Database shows that violent extremism is on the rise worldwide. In particular, terrorism rooted in white supremacy groups. Why? Well, the political polarization that we have created with identity-based politics since the end of the Cold War certainly hasn't helped. We apparently need an other to rally ourselves in unification. Without an external threat, the United States and other countries seem to have started to look internally for threats. Then we ended up with 500 cable TV channels that allowed us to pick our own niche news that fits with our worldview and doesn't challenge us at all. Next, the internet made it easy for us all to connect. Well, not all of us. It allowed all of us with a particular viewpoint to connect with others with the same particular viewpoint, no matter where they are. Of course, we can all just move closer together if we want to, and we do. We have managed to sort all of our political, religious, and ethnic groups into tidy geographical areas so we can be super homogenous. While heterogeneous communities restrain group excesses through the necessity of compromise, homogeneous communities have no such need and therefore can become fully extreme. So, we get more fear, more hate, more discrimination, more conflict, more genocide. We group together for safety with like-minded people, and we build our enclaves. We arm ourselves for protection because there are things to fear. There are people to hate. We must use our powers of discrimination that we have been taught in order to protect ourselves, our loved ones, and our things, because it is too dangerous. It is probably better to act first. Maybe some general discrimination is in order. Maybe we should prejudge the situation. And that leads to conflict, and genocide, and retribution, and fear, and hate, and bigotry, and terrorism, and war, and genocide, and suffering, and grief, and revenge, and so on, and so on, and so on. And I listen to my podcasts, and I listen to the news, the politics, and I am not uplifted. I am increasingly cynical and pessimistic. The wheel keeps on turning and feeding into itself. I studied history in college, and I have always had a certain curiosity regarding the past. And from that, at this point in history, I really don't think we're on a good path. Maybe we humans don't actually deserve this planet. I mean, what other animal destroys their home the way we do? Not only that, we are destroying the homes of every other animal on the planet as well. It's some sort of ultimate murder-suicide. But then, I started hearing and reading some interesting reports. They were just sort of notes at first, but they quickly became more regular. Or, maybe I started noticing a pattern. Maybe that's it. I started noticing a pattern. I found the frequency. Then, I realized it wasn't just me. Everyone was tuned in. Maybe the first thing I heard about was this nun. It was a story about a nun who broke into a national security complex to protest nuclear weapons. She was like 80 or something at the time, but apparently she really did not like nuclear weapons. I think her point was that if she could breach the security, couldn't anyone? And if anyone couldn't any fucking Nimrod with a grievance cause some nasty devastation? Good point. She was caught and sentenced to 3 years in prison. But what kind of prison do they send an 80-something-year-old nun to? She had room and board, healthcare, 24/7 monitoring, cheaper than a nursing home. I remember thinking that when I first heard the story, cheaper than a nursing home. I was probably just being crass. Then, maybe in 2017, Japan started taking a look at their constitution, which renounced war after they were defeated by the Allied forces in 1945. Prime Minister Abe wanted to take an interpretation that allowed for more militarization. This did not land well with a lot of students. Moreover, graying lefties came out in unprecedented numbers to protest. Japan usually doesn't air dissent in public. Protests of any kind really hadn't been seen since the 1960s. But now, it seemed like those student rioters from a half century ago were presently in their, 70s? And they had apparently been stockpiling weapons over the decades. These protests were not simple marches of opposition with dignified chants. No. Evidently, these grandpas and grandmas hadn't missed a workout since 1968. They hit the streets swinging iron pipes and throwing Molotov cocktails at riot police. They had spent their life savings on Kevlar vests, helmets, and drones that they used to spy on police movements while dropping improvised explosive devices. They came out in waves. Day after day after day after day. Everyone was shocked at their tenacity. They were fucking pissed. And were not going to take no for an answer. This drone thing, that really picked up speed. In 2018, there was a coordinated drone attack on a Russian military base in Syria. The drones were homemade and again employed IEDs. The official line is that no one actually knows who conducted the raid, but there has been a great deal of chatter about a group of those protesting Japanese seniors who have taken their game on the road. In retirement, they have become something of a vigilante justice organization with literally nothing to lose. They are old. They have some money. Television sucks. And they want to see some actual change before they die. And then it just seemed to pick up momentum. I kept hearing similar reports from around the world. Old people, pissed off and protesting. Sometimes it was mass nonviolence. Sometimes it was complete violence. The Japanese seemed to be getting around, but they also seemed to be doing some training. Some of the groups were basically just inspired by what they had seen. YouTube training channels appeared. The old trope about the elderly not understanding technology, that was not true anymore, not by a long shot. Gun violence protests spread across the states. Groups of old folks descending on sporting goods shops and then just tearing the place up with hammers and pipes, smashing everything. We're talking like 25, maybe 50 old men and women at one location. They were coordinated. I guess They had plenty of time to practice. They'd smash up the display and then systematically pass the guns from one to the other and then out to the trucks and the vans that they had outside. Sure, the workers at the stores were packing heat themselves, but no good guy with a gun was able to pull the trigger on Grandma with a pipe wrench. Then, I think it was in Omaha, just after the old folk had filled a cargo van with guns and ammo from, what was the name of that place? It had a great name. Red Dawn Firearms. This old lady, maybe 75 or so, in a purple flower print dress with a white cardigan. You can see the video. I think the group that did this one posted the video themselves. She's standing behind a barricade that the protesters had set up. She dons a military helmet, reaches in her sweater pocket, and pulls out a detonator. Bam! Just like that. The whole van goes up in smoke and everything in it. Then, that op, it goes viral everywhere. Gun shops everywhere getting looted and vans being detonated to destroy the weapons inside. Fuck. It was scary shit. It was on the news all the time. You couldn't get everywhere. Of course, the old folks hit the streets in France when the anti-Macron yellow vest protest began. It was almost like they showed up after a couple days and said, excuse us, move over. This is how you do it. And then back in the States, they started storming the family separation camps that the Trump administration had set up. Same tactic as usual, mass coordinated swarm. Lots of chaos on the side of their opposition, but steely reserved from the seniors. They would just grab all the detainees, put them in the buses and cars and trucks and even some helicopters and take off into the night. Rumor is that they're working with a number of church groups and families across the country to get the immigrant families safe, a sort of modern-day underground railroad or something. In 2019, these protesters, is that what they are? Some might say terrorists, maybe freedom fighters, whatever you want to call them. They have been everywhere. It's a global phenomenon at this point. Hong Kong, Chile, Colombia, Zimbabwe, Nicaragua, Moscow, Venezuela, Bolivia, Sudan, London, Jakarta, Israel, Egypt, Iran, everywhere. There are a lot of old people just fed up with the state of things, and they are taking matters into their own hands. The thing is, no one seems to be able to figure out how to combat these geriatric fighters. People around the world have rallied behind them. It turns out that treating the elderly with respect is a pretty international concept. They are kind of like folk heroes now. You've got 20-year-olds in Hong Kong wearing purple flower print dresses with white cardigans tossing bricks at government forces. Everyone wants to be like the Greys. That's what everyone calls them now, the Greys. No government really likes the optics of riot police attacking Grammy and Papa. Plus, the ones that have been arrested, they don't seem to mind. Maybe I wasn't crass after all. It turns out that, if you get caught, prison life is kind of a relief. 3 meals a day, healthcare, 24/7 security, it's not that bad. For a lot of folks that really didn't have that much money for retirement, it's better than not being in prison. Hell, it's becoming something of a recruiting tool. And I think it's working. The Greys are definitely in the leadership at this point. They just don't seem to give a fuck. Fucking fearless. I remember spending time with a number of elderly relatives. I certainly have seen the look of fear on their faces as they realize that they no longer control their own lives the way that they used to. Fear of change. Fear of the unknown. Fear of death. I also remember my sweet grandmother, at 88, pulling me close and passing along some sage advice. Don't get old. Her realization might have come just a little too late. She was too far gone at that point. It seems like there are a certain number of the Greys that maybe got the same advice along the way. It made an impression. I don't know. Maybe. It is the time that we are living in. But it really seems that there has been a collective and global realization amongst the Greys. A conceptual shift. Fuck it. We will not go gently into the night. Something has to change, and maybe we are exactly that change. Maybe after years of thinking that their individual actions would not make a difference, they just decided, well, at this point, let's see if that's true. And it turned out, it wasn't true. Action is action. Trying is action. And we are all supposed to try. There was a spark. Maybe in Japan, who knows? It all happened pretty fast, but things have changed and the younger generations are joining up. The Greys have become an inspiration, a catalyst. Yes, no one gets it right. But the social contract states that we are here and we are all supposed to try. It's time to wake up every day insisting that your actions will yield a net positive at the end of the day. Self-absorption, self-importance, and selfishness have lost any attraction. Selflessness and self-sacrifice are on the rise. Power to the people. Power to the Greys. You have been listening to This Isn't Just a Cult, a work of real fiction. This episode was written by me, Björ6n Oranj. I also did the voice performance and production. All that lovely guitar noodling was created by our very own Machete Petals, the mint machete of dudes with guitars, fingers, and phones set to record. More music from our constellation of artists can be found at Bandcamp, Spotify, Deezer, iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, and just about any other place that you get your listening pleasures. This Isn't Just a Cult is a production of Higgins, Turner Higgins, LLC. Hey, just a thought. You know this, right? This Isn't Just a Cult is more than a cult. It's an art collective. Do you have a story? A little piece that you have been writing? Is it weird? It's probably weird. Send it on over. Maybe you can be a cult member. Why not? It don't cost nothing. Send us an email through our website or at thisisn'tjustacult@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Subscribing and reviews are greatly appreciated. Or, better yet, do you have an estranged relationship? Possibly a cousin from a previous marriage? Maybe a coworker who did you wrong at the company picnic? Most likely that doofus at the come and go, the pump and munch who refuses to make eye contact with you, or even, really, acknowledge your existence. I beg of you. Life is far too short for regrets, misdeeds, excuses, ignorance, or apathy. Let us help you. Share this podcast with that special someone. Create a connection. Create a topic of discussion. Let us be that catalyst that opens the door and bridges the gap. Let us help you come together. Don't waste another moment. Do it now. Maybe use that share button on your podcast app. Go ahead. Send this off to them. Let them know that you are thinking of them. Be the change you want to see. In that spirit, here's a little something from the Halcyon brothers to send you off with. We so appreciate you listening. We hope that we'll always be together.
just like Toulon Tanya, the girl you thought you ought to, a Roman soldier's daughter with a blank attitude. The gum she snaps just fits with the flavor of her lipstick. Her Spanish boots of leather, such a daft little shrew. We'll always be together. We'll always be together. We'll always be together till the jury finds out. We'll always be together. We'll always be together. We'll always be together till the jury finds out. Here comes my friend Danny. He took my cards, he had me. His hair feathers brightly, and he plays foosball. Sporting a new goatee, sharpened by a straight flea. Almost hopeless in the blink of his prime. We'll always be together. We'll always be together. We'll always be together till the jury finds out. We'll always be together. We'll always be together. We'll always be together till the jury finds out. Sanctioned mammoth's lighter as the moon moans and glows in his nose. Living life by sheer faith, not knowing where the light breaks, what sound and spark the dark makes just before dawn. We'll always be together. We'll always be together. We'll always be together till the jury finds out.